Welcome again to our channel. It's very good to be with you again today. We're going to be talking once again about spirituality. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe, hit the thumbs up, leave a message down below so you can hear these videos as we put them up. Today we're going to talk about the choices that we make as human beings. Because you see, despite what many people tell us, we always have a choice of freedoms. What I mean by having a choice of freedom is this. Even in the worst of circumstances, when horrible things are happening, we have the opportunity to choose what path we're going to take. We may not be able to break free from the circumstances, but we have the power to choose what we are going to do within those circumstances. Are we going to overcome the circumstances? Are we going to overcome the world? Or are we going to just react? In our society, we've learned to just react, you see. We hear all of these different slogans and different quick fixes and sayings to tell us about the way the world is and how we should react to things. And sometimes we listen to those things, we take them on, and we think that they are the wisdom of the day, when they're not the wisdom of the day. They're just things that are being repeated from people who have gone before us. Some of the things that we have learned are thousands of years old if you look at the religious scriptures. So we're trying to apply wisdom from thousands of years ago to the year 2023. Some of it works well. Some of it does not work at all. That's why we have to come to a place. We have to come to an understanding where we can draw on the sources of knowledge and wisdom today, translate that into the actions that we use in our lives. This takes the ability to separate the voices, the understandings, the teachings of people who went before us, who are even friends and relatives and teachers, separating that from our own inner voice. It means not listening to the thoughts and ideas that others programmed into us and thinking that that is our choice. It is a choice in a way. It's a choice if we decide to listen to what those people say and live by that and create our life by what other people tell us. Or if we decide not to do that. But you see, if we think that those thoughts and ideas are ours, and they come from reasoning and choosing the logical thing to do, we'll always be deceived. I'm reminded of a class I took in psychology, and we discussed advertising, the skill of advertising. Part of the advertising skill is distraction. A person gives you a message, but they distract you so that you can't think cognitively and reason and see if it's right or wrong. And as they distract you and put aside the part of your mind, the thinking mind, the cerebral cortex, they can slip in thoughts and ideas that appeal to your emotions, especially fear or anger. And this is what we find in a lot of the talk radio, especially far-right talk radio. They draw on anger. They repeat things over and over again and make us furious. And what happens is we become comfortable with that anger. When we're angry, a big burst of energy comes from adrenaline building up for fight or flight. And what happens after we keep listening to what they're saying is that our body gets used to all of this extra energy until we get conditioned. We get addicted to that burst of energy. And then after that, whenever someone says something to us that we don't agree with, the natural reaction is that we become angry. We can't reason anymore. We get blinded by our emotions, and then what happens is we end up fighting with the person and we aren't able to hear what they're saying. We're not able to see the truth anymore. And throughout the ages, those who have used us in order to gain power and hold it have used the same methods that they use on talk radio. In some religions, it is fear, the weaponization of the idea of hell or karma, where you come back to a world and you're punished for things you did in a previous life. You're told that there is some being or some God or something, and the balance requires that if you did something in a previous life and you come back, you get beaten and punished for something that you don't even remember doing. This sounds illogical when you question it, but you see, most of us will not question it because we've learned to fear questioning these things, haven't we? The truth is that if there is some loving and kind and powerful God that can do all things, it would not require you to go through hell because you made a mistake in a previous life if your mind has been erased and is blank and you are an innocent. Even I know that it is not right to make an innocent person be tortured and go through hell. So, how would a mighty God that is loving and kind and peaceful make a person who is totally ignorant of any past offenses be tortured because they have to be? How is it that they have to be tortured if there is a God or a power that can do whatever it wants to do? You see, they don't have to be anything. It's sort of like setting up a structure that is oppressive and painful, and then pretending like one cannot go beyond it because it's set up when one is the person who set it up in the first place. That's trickery and treachery, and it has nothing to do with a God, but it has to do with a king or a queen or a caliph or someone in power, president, some politician who has learned to speak with a forked tongue and who wants to trap us in a situation where we are choosing to do things against our own interests, where we are given choice A and B, not realizing that choice A, B, C, D, E, and F, and several other choices are available. So we're trapped, pigeonholed, locked in a dualistic frame with either A or B, so that we can never see that there is way more than A or B. And when we are trapped in those frames and we accept that as a way of life, we limit our thoughts, limit our ideas, limit who we are, the great divine energy in the universe, moving in time and space, in earthen vessels, as the Apostle Paul said, worship of ages in earthen vessels. That is what we are. But we don't know that. We limit ourselves. We put up the walls. We limit our choices. And then we think that we are the ones who are making the choices when actually we are not. The system has made the choice already. And it's pushing us in one direction. This in turn causes the human being who is supposed to be the choice maker to be someone who is being manipulated, forced to make choices that is not their own. And so spirituality, the joining with the heaven and earth, the expanding of self so that we understand that we are not separate, but connected with everything. Spirituality demands us to look at reality and to go more deeply in reality than your average human being so that we can understand and see that the miracles that exist right now in the world usually exist in time and space. We've just gotten so used to them that we see them as normal and we don't see them as miraculous, or we listen to those who preach scientism and tell us that everything is simply material and things are bouncing off each other like beach balls. There's no organization in the universe, everything's random. Or we listen to the people who tell us about gods that have cursed the natural world so that we can't see the beauty and the wonder in nature, or those who told us that only human beings have souls and animals don't have souls, and before they said Native Americans didn't have souls and black people didn't have souls and Irish people didn't have souls, and whoever their enemy was, whoever they wanted to treat badly, didn't have souls. We find ourselves listening to people like that, not realizing that everything is wonderful, everything is beautiful, everything is full of grace. And when we can look beneath the blanket of fear, of anger, of hatred, and greed that they have laid over top of this reality, we find the bliss, the love, the joy, the God, Goddess, Creator, whatever the name, that resides at the center of this universe. And we find also that power, that energy, that spirit, that thing that animates all of the cells in this body are simply part of that wonderful, beautiful being. And so we find ourselves in a dilemma when we say, I am the divine. What are we talking about? Well, many of the people from the patriarchal religions will tell us that we have a problem, will tell us that we're going to hell by making ourselves equal with God. They'll tell us all kinds of things. But that's because their idea of God is simply the idea of either a European king, an emperor of Rome, or a president. That is not what I consider God, nor is it what most of the great teachers consider God to be. Many of them say that God is not a pronoun, but a verb. What does that mean? It means that one does God. One becomes God or merges with God by doing the things of God. And the major things of God that we have all learned about is love and compassion. Bringing love and compassion to the poor, the dispossessed, and even the angry and hurtful sometimes. Creating a better world through peace and love and kindness. Doing as the divine does. Taking the worst of circumstances, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of those who we come in contact with, and changing the pain and the suffering into something that releases them, that breaks the shell of the human form around us and allows us to break out and flourish like a beautiful golden flower opening up to the light of the sun. That is what spirituality is about. That is what growth is about. That is what divinity is about. And if you are part of a religion or a system or a philosophy that tells you that that doesn't exist, I think that you should either go deeply into that philosophy or religion and find the founder of it and explore what they were saying, how they were living and what they were doing, or you should get out of it as fast as you can, because nothing that is true and just and loving is there anymore. I once saw a PBS show about institutions. They said when institution starts, it is because some group of people do something well and they see some good coming out of it. So they say, well, we want to make this keep happening over and over again. So they start a group, they start an institution. At the center, there are laws and rules that will keep this institution doing things over and over again. But there is also a way where you can change the laws and the rules if you need to. But it takes a lot of effort to do so. And it's created this way on purpose, you see, because they don't want people just to change the rules at the center. But as time goes on, they said, and new people begin to come in who don't have the original vision, what happens is that these people begin to covertly change the institution. And what happens eventually is that people begin to serve the institution instead of the institution serving the people. And when the middle gets too strong and it doesn't allow any type of change to come in, the system dies and we become slaves to it. Many of the religions of the day, many of our institutions of today, many of the governments today are dead, and we are serving them instead of them serving us. So our job, you see, is to break free from these institutions or fight like crazy to change them. Either way is fine, as long as we begin to live what is at the core, to live what is at the foundation, to live what the ones who started that institution taught us, instead of what the institution is saying now. And that, in most areas, is being an expanded, bright, intellectual, cosmopolitan human being. In Greece, the term cosmopolitan meant one who is a citizen of the cosmos, not a citizen of a little country, not a patriot running around with a little red hat on or blue hat on, a person who identifies with every living thing on earth, every being in every culture, and even the cosmos. And if aliens come flying down, that person is wise and bright and expansive enough to even identify with them, knowing that they are more than just a little body living on a little dot of a blue planet far off in a corner of a galaxy that is so alone that we have found no other life yet here. And so as we close, I would like to remind all of you that you have the power of choice. And it's time to begin to choose wisely by stopping the thoughts and the ideas that have been planted in a way that is similar to advertising. Sitting and meditating, watching those voices, listening to them and letting them float away, knowing that they are not who we are and what we are. No, they are just the ideas that we have heard wrapped around that greater, more loving and powerful being. And when we realize that, we will crack open those ideas and thoughts like a seed. And that which is beautiful, loving, and divine will grow like a tree planted by rivers of living water. And that river will be agape, self-love, the treatment of ourselves, regardless of our condition or what we have or what we can afford, treating ourselves with kindness, patience, and love. And that is spirituality, truth, and the nature of the human being. Thanks for being with us for this video, and we hope to be with you again soon.